Lord of the Mysteries. Chapter 512. The End of Things? After Klein retrieved his hat, Bishop Millet's Beyonder characteristic had already been fully condensed. It was only the size of a thumb and was translucent and light blue in color. However, from time to time, green streaks would appear like a tidal wave that approached a black hue. Opening the revolver cylinder, Klein shook it, dropping the empty shells that were either gold, silver, or brass in color to the ground, creating crisp tinkling sounds. Then, he calmly took out a speed loader he had prepared earlier and loaded other Beyonder rounds bullet into the gun. After doing all this, he put away the revolver, bent over to pick up Bishop Millet's Beyonder characteristic, and stuffed it into his pocket without paying too much attention to it. Klein picked up his cane and turned back to the group after taking a few steps. He pulled out a paper figurine and flicked it like he was lashing a whip. Pa! The paper figurine was quickly ignited. It flew out of his hand and turned into specks of scarlet light that fell to the ground, extinguishing into dust. How cool! Denton forgot the pain from his fall and stared intently. It's like Uncle Sparrow is setting off fireworks. Donna nodded in agreement with her brother's words. After using paper figurine substitutes to interfere with the information and traces in the area, Klein looked in the direction of the way back and said calmly and concisely, "Leave this area." With that, he turned around and walked away at a leisurely pace. He took the sun, brooch and Azek's copper whistle from Eland and Danitz respectively. Erdy and the others didn't make useless comments, nor did they cry out in pain. They followed quietly behind. In the battle just now, they had fully witnessed the uniqueness of Beyonders, especially Danitz's flaming powers. It was the most eye-catching and obvious. It left them a deep impression, making them fully realize that this wasn't something ordinary people could intervene in. All they could do was abide by the instructions and follow closely behind. Only by doing so could they guarantee their survival. Compared to Danitz, the battle between Klein and Bishop Millet mainly involved invisible wind blades and the truly intangible psyche domain. Other than the holy light that seemed to descend from the gods and the frightening sight of Bishop Millet's loss of control, the entire battle seemed completely calm, so it didn't deliver a shock to the onlookers. As they passed by the area they had just been in, Cleves, Cecile, and the others suddenly stopped in their tracks. They saw the ground covered with dense cracks everywhere. They instantly understood one thing, and that was that Gehrman Sparrow's battle with the fallen bishop was many times more harrowing than the other performance. A sense of horror and security arose at the same time as all of them quickened their pace. 20 or 30 seconds later, Klein stopped on the street outside the telegraph office. He said to Captain Eland in a deadpan manner, "Do you want to send a telegram?" After saying that, he couldn't help but remind him, "Do not force your way in." "All right." On this strange night, Eland was just as cautious. He took a few brisk steps to the telegraph office and knocked on the door 3 times. Thump! 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 Amidst a slightly muffled sound, someone from inside asked, "Who is it?" Klein, who was already on guard, suddenly frowned, because the one who spoke was a man. Eland was also puzzled. "I want to send a telegram." "Who are you?" "I remember the person on duty was a lady before." The man inside replied calmly, "I'm Pavocourt, Melanie's colleague. She's right, next to me. She's fine." Just as Pavocourt finished speaking, the female voice from before immediately followed up. "Yes. I'm doing very well. You don't need to take note anymore. Pavocourt is back." "Pal, doesn't your folklore say not to answer or open the door? How did Pavocourt get in?" Klein resisted the urge to question her. Eland took a step back and cleared his throat. "I'd like to send a telegram to the headquarters of the Church of Storms. I'm sorry, but we can't open the door," Pavocourt replied without emotion. Eland also felt the strangeness of the matter and didn't dare to force it. Instead, he proposed an alternative plan. "Can you send it for me and pass the draft to me through the crack in the door? The content is about the abnormal changes in Bansi Harbor, and the death of Bishop Millet and Priest Jace. It shall be signed off with Eland, All right. Melanie's voice trailed off, as if she'd returned to the telegraph machine. After waiting for a while, he heard tapping sounds, and before long, a copy of the telegram draft was extended out from the gap under the door. Elan bent down to pick it up, resisting the urge to peek through the cracks. He looked at the telegram draft, and his nose suddenly twitched. He smelled a faint scent of blood on the paper. He tilted his head and looked at Gehrman Sparrow, using his eyes to inform him that there was a problem with the telegraph office. However, he was met with a deep and unperturbed gaze, as well as words that were said in a calm and indifferent tone. Return to the ship. After throwing this sentence out, Klein turned around immediately and walked towards the end of the street, his figure gradually blending into the thin fog. Carrying a broken lantern, Danitz immediately followed after him. Without any hesitation, Dana and the others did the same. After pondering in silence for 2 seconds, Elan took the telegram draft and ran after the group. No other sounds came out from the telegraph office anymore. It was unusually quiet. Perhaps due to the extermination of the fallen Bishop Millet, Klein and the others didn't meet any more headless people in black cloaks on their way back. Moldy heads were only seen twice, and they were easily dealt with. After walking for an unknown length of time, they finally saw the dock and the white agate which had candlelight seeping out. This sight made Erdy and the others regain their strength. They transitioned from a brisk walk to a jog, all the way until they reached the bottom of the gangway. Klein stood guard below them with his blood-stained cane until everyone was on board. Then with a tug, he jumped and arrived on the deck with just a few steps. At that moment, Elan had already begun to gather his first mate, second mate, bosun, gunner commander, and other subordinates. He got them to gather the sailors, adjust the cannons, and prepare to depart at any moment. Although leaving the port at night had non-trivial security risks, it would be the best way to avoid danger if the situation worsened. Uncle Sparrow. Donna held her brother by the hand and trotted to Klein's side, plagued by a bellyful of questions. Klein nodded, pointed to the cabin, and said, "Go back to your room first. We'll talk about it tomorrow. The danger hasn't been averted." Donna nodded obediently. Together with Denton, she put her index finger to her lips. "Sure." After the Branch family and the Timothy family entered the cabin, Klein walked over to Eland, took out Bishop Millet's Beyonder characteristic, and threw it to him. "If there are still mandated punishers alive, return this to them." The Beyonder characteristic left behind by a bishop who might have been a Sequence 6 would definitely be pursued by the Church of Storms, and everyone on the White Agate would be a target of suspicion. Klein didn't want to be wanted by the number 1 power at sea as soon as he set sail. If none of the mandated punishers in Banshee Harbor survived, and if reinforcements from headquarters would take a while to arrive, leaving Klein plenty of time to deal with the matter and leave, then he would surely be reluctant to return it, and would find a reason to get it back. Elan caught the thumb-sized object, glancing at it doubtfully. He didn't ask what it could be used for, and he chuckled. "Don't worry about the Church of Storms investigation. I'll hint to them that you're with me." "So, I'll be considered a member of MI9 by the Church of Storms?" Klein nodded without saying anything else. Elan looked at Danitz and probingly asked, "Blazing?" "Ha!" Danitz chuckled dryly and took a leaf out of someone's book. "Guess." "I don't think so then," Elan replied with tacit understanding. With the simple matters dealt with, Klein returned to the side of the ship and looked at the fog-shrouded Banshee Harbor, prepared against any hidden dangers. Time ticked by, and the peak of the mountain next to the shore lit up once again with the lights of a thunderstorm. Streaks of silver and violent bolts of lightning swept the area without restraint before they gradually calmed down. The fog in Banshee Harbor began to dissipate, and the light of the crimson moon became clearer. "It's over?" Even after seeing this, Klein still didn't dare to completely relax. Half an hour later, 3 men who claimed to be mandated punishers came to the dock to see Captain Eland. After Gehrman Sparrow confirmed it with a divination and a round of questioning, Eland allowed the sailors to lower the gangway. The 3 mandated punishers motioned for the surrounding crew to leave, then they lowered their voices and informed the captain of the situation. Klein didn't move closer to listen, but instead he waited patiently for the matter to end. A few minutes later, Eland returned Bishop Millet's remaining characteristic to the mandated punishers and watched them leave the white agate to deal with the rest of the mess. Phew! Eland exhaled and came to Klein's and Dannett's side. He casually said with a tinge of lingering fear, "The matter has been resolved. There aren't any problems." "Has it really been solved?" Klein suddenly thought of Pavo Court and Melanie behind the telegraph office door. He recalled Fox, the owner of the Green Lemon restaurant, and the many lodgers who had watched them silently. Eland continued, "To be specific, Jace discovered the revival of ancient customs, cannibalism and live sacrifice, confirming that a small number of people in Bansi Harbor had become heretics. He hurried back to the church and reported this to Bishop Millet, but unbeknownst to him, the person before him was the leader of the heretics, a true fallen one. He had his neck cut off by Millet's wind blade and died in the Cathedral of the Lord. Millet was about to dispose of the body, but he was discovered by the servants, hence, things spiraled out of control. Some of the servants were turned into monsters, while some were led by the priests to hide underground. Without any means to hide himself, Millet quickly left the cathedral, gathered the heretics, and headed for the altar at the mountaintop. The weather changed as a result. After the mandated punishers retrieved 3 sealed artifacts, they rushed over and engaged in an intense battle. In the process, Millet was injured and escaped, while the rest of the heretics remained to defend the altar, which was eventually overrun. The church's headquarters has already replied, and they'll be sending people to investigate the cause of Bishop Millet's fall. I told them that we were only able to kill Bishop Millet by joining forces because he was heavily injured. By the way, the mandated punishers have gotten me to get the Branch and Timothy families to sign a confidential agreement." After giving a general account of the situation, Eland let out a long sigh of relief and busied himself with the remaining matters. Klein didn't dare to completely relax. He stayed on deck until the clouds appeared to burn when the sun slowly rose, illuminating the entire port. He saw the residents leave their houses one by one, basking in the golden sunlight, chatting and laughing as they headed for their respective jobs. Bansi Harbor finally had the breath of human life again. "It's really over." Klein turned around, slightly puzzled. He had planned to catch up on his sleep, but only after the ship had departed. As for Danitz, although he had long been yawning, he remained motionless when he saw a German sparrow being motionless. On the way into the cabin, Klein met Eland, who had also not slept the entire night. "Good morning. We're about to leave the port. There's nothing to worry about," Eland greeted with a smile. As he spoke, the white agate's whistle sounded. Upon hearing the sound, Klein secretly exhaled, deciding to put all his doubts behind him. He didn't want to think about Bansi Harbor anymore, so he nodded in response. Eland stretched his neck and commented with a sigh, "Last night, I had a mystical feeling that the old Binzi and the modern Bansi Harbor overlapped." Klein had intended to walk past him when he suddenly grasped a word and asked with a grave expression, "Binzi? Heh, that's the ancient name of Bansi Harbor. 300 or 400 years ago, it was called Binzi Town. Later, due to its pronunciation and other factors, it gradually evolved into Bansi," Eland introduced in passing. Klein's pupils shrank when he heard the answer. He remembered very clearly that the evil spirit in Backlund's underground relic had once mentioned that if one wanted to find one of the founders of Rose Redemption, the former king of angels, Medici, and his descendants, one could go to Binzi Town to try their luck. Binzi! Klein's heart seemed to freeze over, inch by inch. A chill radiated from the depths of his bone marrow. He jerked his gaze back to the harbor, to the scenes of the telegraph office with its tightly closed doors and the lodgers in Green Lemon restaurant who were silently staring at him.